One. Good evening, everybody. We are live. It's RVing in New England, and it's Wednesday night, and welcome to all of you who will be joining in quickly. As you see on the screen, we've got my buddy John, and we have a picture of Trey Selman, and we hope to have him live. We're experiencing technical difficulties, but Trey Selman from RV Safety Education Foundation is with us tonight, and we're delighted to have him. I've known the foundation since John Anderson founded it many years ago, so it's been a while. So Trey, welcome from Texas. You said you're in Texas tonight, right? Is that where you live?
Yes, sir. And it's good to talk to you and John. Hello.
Yes.
And yeah, we're in Texas. A little cold front came through, so we're experiencing a little bit of the weather that y'all have up there.
What's a little bit of a cold front for you?
It's going to get the freezing tonight, so it's going to get to 30 degrees.
So, that's great. Hey, you know what? We planned it because we're doing RVing in New England, and we wanted you to feel like a New Englander.
that would be a good way to do it. Yeah,
it's the next best thing to being in New England is experiencing New England weather in Texas.
There you go.
What part of Texas are you in, Trey?
We're in Central Texas, in Austin, South Austin. Yeah,
okay.
South of Austin.
All right.
Yes. Basically, this show is going from Austin to Boston.
There you go.
Wow, that'd be a nice.
I think we're sister cities too. I think so.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that'd be a good tagline.
Yeah. Well, Bob, I'm excited about the show tonight because, again, we're going to talk about another topic that so many times is overlooked because when it comes to weight and issues like that, it's not something that you actually see or feel or touch, but yet you experience it. And I'm so glad that you have Trey on to talk about this topic because I think it's something of value to everyone.
Well, we have Walter Swenson with us tonight, and we have Audrey Foley-Egan on, so I'm sure the rest of the regulars will come tuning. I'm sure Walter's going to have a lot of questions because he's an engineer, Trey, and he gets into all that detail stuff. And Walter's the state director for him and Donna for the Massachusetts Good Sam chapter. So we do that. Why don't you give us a little background about RV Safety Education Foundation, and we'll kick it off that way.
RV Safety and Education Foundation has been in existence for 25 years, right at it. And it started off as a weighing program only. And then we realized, and it was by John Anderson, he was the founder of the organization. And very shortly, another very important person came in, and Walter Cannon. And he's been the executive director for a long time, for 2 decades. And they realized the importance of education. And so about 5 years into it, they decided that instead of keeping it just that business only, they wanted to create a nonprofit organization. So it became a nonprofit organization where we tried to work with the consumers and the industry to try to be advocates for safety. So we kind of are in the middle ground. We're not really advocating for consumers, nor are we advocating for the industry. We're advocating for safety. So it's kind of been the existence of the organization.
Yep. And Walter, I don't know how far back you go with us, but John Anderson, who started the program, and it was originally called Away We Go, and Way being W-E-I-G-H. John Anderson founded it after he retired, but he was in charge of the entire aircraft fleet at Data General. I know a lot of the people that are joining us probably don't know who Data General was. Or
Data General or Digital?
No, Data General.
Data General, okay.
Yeah. They had a big fleet too. That
was the Castro.
At one time, their fleet was bigger than Digital Equipment's fleet. But
that was one of the guys that told that company was one of those people that told Bill Gates, "See you later, son. You'll never make it." No,
that was Ken Olsen at Digital.
Right. It was both of them. But anyway.
Yeah. So do that. Anyway. So we got Walter, we got Audrey. Mark Polk just joined us. Good evening, Mark. Nice to see you again. Yep. So Trey, what role do you play in the organization?
Well, I started working for my wife and I both, Susan. we started about 8 years ago working for the organization. We were just a weighing team, but Walter is going to be retiring, or he's pretty much retired. And so I've been the executive director for the last year. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
we've been transitioning over to that. So
I didn't realize that. I knew he was trying to work his way out the door, but it took probably longer than he wanted. But so you are officially the executive director now.
yes, he's still helping. He's still working, working with us and doing stuff. But we pretty much transitioned almost all of the responsibilities over to Susan and I.
That's great.
Yeah.
Trey,
Yeah.
tell us your background. What you did prior to getting involved in the RV lifestyle. What is your background? Where are you from? What's your education? What was your career? And same for your wife, because she's partners in on this with you as well, right?
Yes. Both of us are very heavily into education. And so that's where we kind of fit in that education department. She was a teacher, taught in many areas. I worked at a church, so I was teaching at a church for 2 decades, working with high school kids. But my education background goes back to science. I'm a chemistry and biology major, so I'm not an engineer, but almost all of my close friends, are engineers. We've worked many different jobs since we started full timing, which was about 10 years ago. But I'm from Texas. I'm from Central Texas. This is home. This is where we winter. Right now, we have a little small part-time job that we've done for about almost 3 decades now. I've been working at it. My wife's only been doing it for about 10 years. We help put on the Central Texas Science Fair. So we're here doing that. In about 2 weeks, we'll be putting that on. So in a lot of different areas with regards to science, technology, we've worked, and then teaching and education. So
good. Let's get into some gritty stuff, because I knew it wouldn't be long before Walter Swenson gave us his astute view of things here. Walter says now this is for you, Trey. And now that you're executive director, we know we're talking to the guy at the top here. He says, you need to add people in New England. I spoke with Walter, meaning Cannon, in years past, and tried to get people in New England to support weighing rigs in New England without much success. So how can we help you, and how can you help us get people to weigh? Maybe if there's anything on the agenda for New England, let us know. But if not, tell us how we can get somebody up here to weigh, because we certainly have enough RVers up here. And I'm always disappointed when I find out my dealers don't want to weigh them. But save that for another question. Let's address Walter's issue about weighing teams in New England.
Yeah, I mean, we have to go where we can get concentrated RVers. So we do a lot of rallying, so our teams travel. And we have teams coming and going. We're just finishing up training 2 new teams. So we'll be finishing that in the next couple of months. And then they'll be traveling this year. We're hoping to get 1 more team added. So we want to get a 3rd team added. That's pretty much all of our scales that we have right now. That's one of the limitations. It's just, we're a nonprofit organization, so resources is always an issue. Being able to train people, but also the cost of the scales is not cheap. And so they're expensive, and so we have to justify that. And of course, we're a nonprofit organization, so you have to work through a board to do all that kind of stuff. But we've been trying to add some more. So part of it's that, but part of it's just checking our schedule, and we work the rallies out at this time of the year. We're starting to get our schedule filled up for this year and see where that is. I don't remember off the top of my head. I know we're doing one in Virginia. I think there's going to be a rally in Virginia. That's the closest we're going to be that I know of at this moment. It doesn't mean more won't be added.
All right, that brings up 2 questions. You say the scales are expensive. If one of our dealers wanted to buy the scales, what would the scales cost? What is, because I know consumers can buy them, but what does a set of scales cost? And you're talking about 6, I assume.
Brand new, a single scale. And this is a ballpark.
Ballpark.
I'd have to go talk to the guy at Loadometer. He's up in Baltimore. That's the only place that sells them, at least the ones that we use. And they're a brand new set of scales. I want to say it's about $6,000 per scale. So you have to have a minimum of two because they're well positioned scales. So that's at least $10,000 to $12,000 somewhere in there.
Wow.
To just get started. Yeah.
So you said
they're not cheap.
No, okay, I believe you now.
You said that you just got through training a new group. Describe what you mean by that, and how can people, if they have an interest, be people that work through your organization?
Well, if you go to our website, rvsafety.com, we do have a link on the main thing that talks about or on the weighing section of the website that has a description, a pretty good generalized description of being a weighing team. And so you can kind of see what goes on there. Like I said, we're finishing up the weighing because we have to do it when we're doing rallies. And the winter is a tricky, there's not as many rallies during the winter time. And so our teams were traveling a little bit doing some special stuff because they're mostly full timers, they're couples that do it because it takes a couple of people to work a rally. I mean, there's a lot of we collect information. We don't just weigh it's not just putting scales under. We have to collect information. We look up tire charts for everyone. We double check all of their data. So it's a matter of trying to teach them about the issues with regards to weighing, to understand the dynamics of the different kinds of RVs that we encounter. So that takes a while. We're constantly learning. Things are constantly changing. New RVs are coming out, new technology. So part of it is an ongoing training, but the initial thing is getting them used to the software, the scales, the process, understanding how to properly weigh the RV. And the uniqueness of air suspension motorhomes.
Do they have to have some kind of certification, or is it a formal training program, or is it just training on your systems and your software and your hardware?
It's just it's training on our systems. Yeah, there's no formal education like with the scale company. The only training they do is to train technicians how to fix the scales.
Okay, Mark Polk just made a comment that you will like, I hope. Mark says, and Mark and Donna with RV Education 101. I'm sure okay. Mark says, Mark says, if we wanted to film a segment on weighing RVs for consumer knowledge on our YouTube channel, is that doable? We might be able to get to the Virginia Rally.
It's possible. It'd be something to work out. That's just one of those things to work out. We're still working on the details of that Virginia Rally, and that's one of our new teams that'll be doing that. So it might be better to do it at a different time, something like that. But there's certainly something that could be worked out with regard to that.
That'd be a good feature. Walter Swanson says, priced it out when I spoke with Walter. I think it was around $37 for a full set, and I think a full set would be $6. Seeing a lot of people have the tag axles or other wheels, so so $36,000 is a big chunk. Jerry,
it's a lot of money. We don't our teams usually carry 4 scales because you don't certainly there are ways, there are mats whenever we have. But that goes into all the training of it.
So but you don't need you're not going to weigh 6 at one time anyways, right? Because you only.
Usually we don't. If we have 6 scales, then that helps it with the tag axle and makes it a little bit. It can make it just a little bit faster, but really when you learn our processes and stuff, and when we do the training, it's pretty quick. We like to. I've had to do rallies with 2 scales.
Yeah.
So I can do all of those with 2 scales, but I also have to have. Like I said, you have to have special mats to be able to make sure everything's level, so there are certain processes, but a minimum of 2 scales, but it's ideal to have 4 or 6 is very
okay.
expensive.
Jerry Plant joined us from Cape Cod. Jerry's with Majors RV and Service Center in Cape Cod, which is our largest service. They don't sell anything. Largest service center in New England and Northeast. And tremendous technicians. So Jerry says he saw a YouTube video where a guy turned a hydraulic bottle jack into a scale by adding a pressure gauge to the return line. Now, I don't have any clue what he talks about, but Walter probably understands it. I have no clue, but Jerry's always got a good technical solution. But what more importantly than the solution, Jerry, do you guys weigh units down there at Majors? Because I know you do just about everything. And if you don't, is there a good reason why dealers don't make this an option? Pricing wise, you guys still at $60 to weigh a rig, Trey?
$60, 60.
Does that really cover your cost though?
Not really, no. Not really. But we're trying to keep it in the.
You got to stop thinking as a nonprofit and figure it as a profit, because you're going to go from not for profit to not in business.
Yeah.
From that perspective, because when you look at the rationale behind spending $60 for a unit that you might have spent, up to $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for, it makes sense to do that. Well, I'm sure that most of our viewers would agree with that. But I got a question for you, Trey. Well beyond the process of how you do it, and forgive me for chewing gum, but I've got this bug, and if I don't chew gum, I'll start coughing. So that's the only reason I'm chewing gum. It's not trying to be impolite. But folks, Trey, tell us the number one reason that you tell people that they should weigh.
Todd, before you jump there, Todd Emerson says, "John, what are you eating?" Is that why you explained it? Did you see his?
No, I didn't even see that.
Before I saw it,
Todd, I'll tell you what. I wish it was popcorn from your place, but it's not. But Trey,
Al Jackson's on. He says, "Wow, watching live for a change. Great stuff. Thanks for joining."
Al Jackson, he's the guy who we bumped into at the show.
Right. And Todd's real smart. Todd says, "Bob, I know what you're drinking. I can't imagine that you'd know, Todd." So Trey, go ahead. Go back to your question.
So Trey, the original question was, what is the number one reason you tell people that they should weigh their units, knowing full well that that's only a portion of what you provide there for services?
Yeah, can I make it two primary reasons? One, the number one reason is just to make sure that we're not overloading ratings. We're used to many RVers are used to just driving passenger car vehicles. They're not aware that there are weight ratings on these vehicles, and so that would be the primary one. Make sure we're not overloading weight ratings, especially the tires. The tires are our number one safety concern, and so then that follows to the second one is to get a proper inflation pressure, because you really need to know that weight to be able to get a proper inflation pressure on these RV tires. So those would be the two primary reasons. But the reason we do wheel position weighing is because you can get a cat scale weighing or a platform scale weighing at a truck stop, but wheel position weighing helps us see what's going on side to side, because our RVs are houses on wheels, and we've got kitchens on one side and generators and battery, all that stuff. And so we can have across the axle, we can have issues like that. So that's why we do wheel position weighing, to be able to see those. And that's in a nutshell. That's a quick answer.
Yeah, and as you said, even from the beginning days when John started the company and through Walter's years, there's still a lot of vehicles. I don't know where you are percentage-wise now in terms of the number of vehicles going down the highway that are overweight. What percentage do you use when you're teaching your conference or talking to the press as far as how many are estimated to be overweight?
The big overall picture is about it's almost 60%. And motorized vehicles, it's right at 60%, or towable vehicles, it's more in the 50 to 55%. And that number still stands true. Now, it does depend on certain types of vehicles. But sometimes we see even higher, sometimes we see less. It all just, so certain vehicles have a tendency to be overloaded more than others too. So, but that's the general idea.
Okay, Walter. No, Jerry's got a question. Where did I go? No, Walter's got it. He says, any thought about the CURT Better Way OBD mobile tow scale uses the tow vehicle sensors to calculate the tow vehicle weight? Okay, let me just. pull
Could
my
you hear
phone.
that okay, Trey?
Bear with me for a second. I'm going to. Okay.
While you're doing that, let me take my
Okay.
break.
No, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring you up. Let me kill a picture. Hang with me, folks. I gotta kill a picture. We have Mr. Selman in the flesh. Oh,
With his Holy Cross colors on.
there you go.
Right.
Hey,
Kill the phone, Trey. All right.
All
how are
right.
you?
All right. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
You're live. All right.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
let me
Okay.
get rid of the other Mr. Selman. And
Yeah. So going back to that, we use Haney scales. So it's a scale that's made in Switzerland. It's got a low profile scale, and so no, I could not speak to any other specific scales
Okay.
with regards to those.
All right. Steve Giano's on. Hi, Steve. Welcome back. And Jerry says, I'm not sure what this is related to, Jerry, because sometimes the comments come on quickly.
I think it was why you should weigh.
Okay, yeah. Jerry says my biggest reason was to properly set the tire pressure. I was running max sidewall before I weighed it, and it was like driving a Flintstone mobile.
Right.
All right. So obviously Jerry weighed one, and Jerry's got a Class A Safari, and that's so.
Yeah, that was my number two. That was my number two, to get proper inflation pressures for your tires. So that was my number one and number two. So I agree completely with that.
When you part of your data collection, when you do these weighings, do you actually ask the customer if they weigh or when the last time they weighed was? I mean, as part of your discussion, because I'll bet there's plenty of. We know that RVers don't get all the education and knowledge that they should get, and I'll bet there's people out there that once you see or once they weigh for the first time, they say, I get it in my seminars all the time. They say, I didn't know I had to weigh my rake.
Right. So we don't necessarily. I mean, if that might come up. We're concerned about that particular instance right there. But just yesterday, I weighed somebody that I weighed last year, and he was overloading his truck, his towing vehicle, his pickup truck with the fifth wheel. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, he bought a new truck. Now, we don't necessarily suggest that people do that, but he did have some issues with the size RV that he wanted. And so we weighed him again yesterday. So sometimes that, things like that do happen. We do have a tendency to weigh people often. Our suggestion is get a cat scale weight, because they're very easy to get. But again, that can only give you an overall weight and then maybe some axles. But sometimes even separating axles on a cat scale is very difficult on certain RVs. But at least it gets you an overall weight and kind of get you in the ballpark, and then look on our schedule, see where we are, and then we'll do our best to try to get you weighed by wheel position as we travel.
That's a good point, because last time I did a product review, the cat scale was only $10. So as an interim to their annual checkup with you, then maybe once a quarter they do a cat scale for $10, and just to make sure they're still in line.
Yeah, it ranges around from 12 to 14, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on where you go. So we don't shy away from that. If you can get a weight there, you just can't really get a good wheel position weight on those, because you can't get off to the side. They don't allow it. They don't set them up so that you can get off to the side and do that. And then those scales aren't really designed for that. But that's just not the purpose or function of them. But it's still good to get. I mean, it's easy to get. It's not expensive. They're all over the country. So that helps you see what's going on in a general sense. And then whenever you get a chance, we do it. Then what we suggest on top of that is, especially for full-timers or people that, that spend a lot of extended time, so they're loading their RVs up more usually, maybe every 3 or 4 years, or if you make some major modification, like if you added a large battery bank or solar panels, or you did some furniture modifications inside, that would be another good time to get weighed by wheel position to see what's going on.
All right.
So when you refer to weight management, we're talking primarily the rig and not necessarily the occupants, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. My wife says to the ladies who sometimes get out of the truck because they don't. She says, "You're 98 pounds. It's not going to matter that much, but we really need it to be in there." So, yes, sir, you're right. Taking care
You
of
know
those
what?
things or adjusting weight. The weight management comes down to, let's say maybe you have a heavy pin weight or something like that, or you're just really close on the tow vehicle of the rear axle of the tow vehicle of the truck. So maybe you can shift some weight from the front of the trailer to the back of the trailer. Now, sometimes that's easy to do, sometimes it's not, but that's just an example of how we can try to manage
Right.
weights.
You know what? The way I said it, I guess it could be taken both ways. But in a motorhome, in a drivable, a motorized
Yes.
unit, many times if you've got 4 or 5 grandkids with you, they will generally have a tendency when they're in the back, sit around the table or somewhere like that, where maybe it's a situation where they should be equally divided. I don't know, because everybody brings more people in than they should anyway. Is that a factor at all, or are we, because we're talking 60 or 70 pounds at a time, it's not an issue?
Well, I would step back and make sure in that situation that everybody has a seatbelt. That's really important. So we want to make sure that wherever those seatbelts are, and that may be a limitation right there. Just there's a certain number of seatbelts.
But I will say this, is that the seatbelt rule, not only for number of occupants that there are seatbelts available for, my guess is that the majority of the people riding in the back of a motorized unit are not using a seatbelt. That's my guess, and maybe our guests can tell us tonight if they've got, like Audrey Foley. I don't know if you travel with many other people other than just you and your husband, but my guess is that a vast majority of people are not using seatbelts. We're adamant about it with our grandkids because we've seen how quickly things can go wrong.
Yeah, let me get back to a couple of questions here. Todd Emerson says, even with multi-seal in the tire, overloading is number one cause of blowouts. What is multi-seal in a tire? Right.
There are different types of sealants, and I guess that's what he's talking about. But yeah, the primary issue that we're talking about is overloading, and overloading tires is our number one concern. So there are other products that you can use to try to help with that. But certainly the issue we're really trying to educate people on is that these vehicles have weight ratings, and we're just not used to thinking about that with regards to our passenger car tires. And in America, if there's a hole or a cabinet that's empty, then we'll find a way to fill it up. And that's what happens. So we just got to be aware of these things and then get measurements on them to see what's going on.
Doug Turner's got a comment here. It's interesting. He says, and I'm going to guess by a couple of comments behind you, Doug, that you actually live in Goshen, Indiana. So you might tell us if that's true. But he says, I just got here. You just tuned in. I haven't heard the entire show. He says, the Ramblin' Pushers maintenance session has people that weigh our motorhomes and tow vehicle, and they charge $10. Now, the Ramblin' Pushers, Doug, tell us a little bit more about that. But I know it's all diesel pushers, but is it a company?
FMCA group.
FMCA group. But how can they afford to do weighing for $10? And do they do the wheel weights, or do they have a portable scale of some sort? Just give us a little bit more background on that. Do you have any experience with Ramblin' Pushers, Trey?
It's a special holiday Rambler group that gets together. We've not been there to their rally, but they meet every year usually in May or April, somewhere around that time, I believe, at a rally in Goshen. And they just enjoy getting together and talk about technical issues. And I think somebody there bought a set of scales. It's not the same ones that we use, to my understanding, but honestly, I don't know for sure. But I know somebody one of their members bought a set of scales, and I think that they just do it for their members there at that rally. That's the best I can explain. So.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Go ahead, John.
So, folks, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the live broadcast. And the reason that we're able to reach, what are we up to, like 10,000 people on last week's show, Bob?
Yep.
Somewhere around that area.
Yep.
Is because of you folks. And we want to thank you so much for taking the time to just hit the share button right on your laptop or on your desktop or on your tablet or even your phone, depending upon how you're watching. So we want to thank you for doing that. And we're in the process, because we have these numbers now, of getting some sponsors. And when we get some sponsors, that means there's going to be prizes for you folks, our viewers.
Right.
Bob,
Audrey's got a smart comment on. She says, "Don't weigh my rig when we go to Xfinity for the Jimmy Buffett concerts."
Right. And one of the things that we've always said is that this show is apolitical. We don't care whether you're a D, an R, an independent, or whatever it is. And then our friend Todd Emerson
we're not even going to go there.
Yep. So we're not going to go there at all. Todd Emerson, don't dare bring any politics up on our show.
Don't you dare, Mr. Emerson. Hey, Trey, you started to talk a little bit before, or you made some of the magic words about weighing. And one of the things I always mention in my seminars, and I often post it on comments on other forums when we see people struggling about what kind of truck should I buy, and they get 10 wrong answers and nobody got the right answer. But you have that video on your site, matching trucks and trailers. Explain the value of that, because I think it's one of the best things out there, and it's free.
Yeah, it's a free video that we have. It kind of helps get introduced into matching a truck to a trailer. There is more detail, and we're actually going to be working on a course this year to extend that. So that would be the first lesson in the series, and then we're gonna extend it even more. But we really see a lot of issues with that truck, that tow vehicle, with regards to overloading it once we put that tongue weight or pin weight on the back of that tow vehicle. So it's a concern, and we want to be aware of those and understand that.
Jim Conboy, who has the franchise for Flex Armor here, does a nice job with Bruce. He's one of our associate members, as are you guys. Jim says, "What's the wiggle room for weight if the manufacturer says X? What is acceptable?" I'm the least technical qualified guy on this call, Jim, but I'm going to say anything less than X.
That's correct.
Wiggle your way down, but don't wiggle your way up.
Yeah, there's ratings. We look at 3 primary ratings besides the tire ratings. So as long as you're under the rating, it's certainly okay, according to the manufacturer. And according to the manufacturer of axles, they set the ratings there too. The final manufacturer, vehicle manufacturer, will set the final axle rating. But all of those, as long as you're under that rating, and then when we look at axles, that's where that tricky part is, right? With the balance side to side that's unique about RVs and axle manufacturers. They want to make sure that you're not, if let's say the axle is rated at 6,000 pounds, they don't like to see more than half of the axle of that rating on one side. So, you don't want to see more than 3,000 pounds on a 6,000 pound rated axle on one side. So if and that can happen on an RV. So that's another reason why wheel position weighing is a helpful.
Hey, Trey, one other thing that I think is important to point out, and again, Bob says he's not qualified to talk about this. I'm just as unqualified to talk about it. But being a motorhome owner, not a towable owner, I think it's important to point out that my guess is that the chassis of your motorhome, if it's a Class C, for example, where you can see I have a Sprinter-based chassis. A lot of the new units now, the Class Bs are coming out with Dodge, what do you call them, the ProMaster, and the Ford Transit. Each of those units may have a separate suggested PSI for their tires. And so I don't think you can just say, you need 90 pounds in the front or 60 pounds or whatever it is. I think it's important to check that sticker right somewhere around the driver's door. Am I right on that?
That's correct. You don't want to go by the sidewall pressure has to do with the maximum load capacity of the tire. The manufacturer sets a recommended inflation pressure, usually based on the axle rating. But if there's a sticker, there's a tire inflation sticker that they're giving their it's to carry the most amount of weight, right? So, and that's a good safe place to be. We suggest always that you go by that sticker until you can get weighed by wheel position, because if you weigh just the whole axle on an RV, you could really get yourself into trouble with changing in tire inflations.
Interesting. Let's.
Bob, did you read Doug's? It's a diesel pusher maintenance session. Goshen is where the rally is. He's from Richmond, Indiana.
Okay. Yep.
Well, it must be in that same area. Steve brings up a very good point. It's a very high percentage of mismatching tow vehicle to trailer. And my guess is that the big issue is an underpowered tow vehicle carrying more weight than it should.
Underpowered is not usually the problem as much as overloading the weight on the overloading the total weight of the vehicle or the rear axle. That's where we see a lot of real safety concerns. Today's trucks, the technology in the engines and the transmissions and the differentials they're getting higher and higher and higher. And so they can pull or move more weight down the road. But the problem is they're not changing, the rear axles aren't changing because they're limited to certain classifications of trucks. But we're trying to put more and more weight on the back of that truck. And so that has to go with stopping distance, overloading the rear axle, and that can be overloading tires. And that's kind of the hidden issue for tow vehicles or trucks or SUVs.
Okay. Walter says he's got a fifth wheel. Our truck ratings, 23,000 pounds, 4,500 pounds load capacity. With the RV from the scales comes in at 18,000 pounds, and our load in the truck is 3,850. I don't know. Maybe he's looking for an analysis. That's quick numbers to throw at you. I can probably throw them up, but if you might be able to read them on your.
Yeah, without knowing all of his ratings, and more specifics about the vehicle, that's very difficult to do because terminology, we might be talking about different numbers there. So, so that's kind of tricky to do on the.
Let's change course because these hours go quickly. One of the things you did within the last year or so was you put a lot of your stuff online with the RV Academy in your training session. So I've got 3 slides of 6 courses that are in there. So let's briefly talk about the 2 that I throw on the screen and why they're important to consumers. So this one's got RV weight safety and understanding air brakes.
Bob, you can take me off there to make that bigger so people can see it if that.
Yeah, we had some DVDs, and we're just trying to change with technology. And this also allows us to be able to make updates. We're in the process of updating some of our courses. Yep. And so this allows us to easily make updates because you can just change the videos or change the written material very quickly to add new technology or to remove things that have kind of gone out of the way and we just don't see as much anymore. So that's one of the things. It also provides certificates, automatic certificates, and it's just a better technology. People are moving that way. So we wanted to set that up. The 2 primary courses that are the most valuable that we have right now are the RV Foundations and the Driving Safety course. Those are our more extensive courses.
Hang on, let me get that up.
Yeah. And then Understanding Air Brakes is a good one as well. Those would be probably the top 3 looking at.
But why are those? Why is RV Foundations, RV Driving Safety? What's the consumer going to learn from those?
RV Foundations kind of is a big overall. It's a safety focus, but it's also just general knowledge focus for all of your systems on your RV. So it goes through your electrical system. It talks about fire safety. It talks about wastewater, talks about fresh water. It's kind of just a good overall aspect with a little bit of a focus on RV safety in there as well. Then the driving safety is just our driving safety course. We used to teach it live at rallies, and and it was a number of Walter did it live mostly, but then he was going to try to transition to retirement, so we moved it to online. And so this allows people to take this. One of the benefits is that it allows people that have taken it to get a certificate, and that can help reduce your insurance as well. So a lot of insurance companies
does it cover towables and motorhomes?
Yeah, we have in some instances we have some very specific information on like each aspect of towing. And then depending on what we're talking about, we try to cover both aspects of it. But driving safety is is a lot of it's more general. We're all a bigger vehicle, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to reteach a driving safety course that you learned, back when we got our licenses, or whenever we do something that we shouldn't do and we need to go to a driving safety course. But we're trying to help people understand the differences between a regular passenger car vehicle and driving these bigger vehicles. We've got a lot more weight. Our stopping distances are different. Our turning has to be different. Just all of those differences with this large vehicle. We need to look up now instead of just right straight ahead. We need to be aware of different blind spot areas that we have. So all of that, we're discussing all of those types of situations. Mountain driving. We talk about mountain driving. So just trying to get a hit or miss thing in there about the differences there of what this class is covering.
Let me pull that one down and bring up one of your other ones. Let's see. We did.
Trey, while Bob's figuring that out, let me ask maybe it sounds like a beginner's question, because it is. Is there a difference in driving your unit in cold weather versus hot summer weather? Are there any concerns that people should have outside of air conditioning, but as far as tires and humidity and the type of air that's out there, is it a factor at all?
Other than road conditions is certainly
right. Yeah.
Road conditions, but that's that's kind of obvious.
Right. Assuming the road is clear.
Yeah, certainly. With regards to our tires, it goes back to inflation pressure. But if our inflation pressure is proper, it shouldn't be an issue. But whenever we are in cold weather, our initial is called the cold inflation pressure. It's before it's been driven on. That's what cold means. That's what the engineers, that's when they want us to measure our inflation pressure. Well, when you have a really cold day, you could, every 10 degrees of ambient temperature drop, we can have 1 to 2 PSI and our tires drop. So we'll definitely want to make sure that we check our inflation pressure before we start driving on a cold day, and make sure that they're proper before we take off. So that's an important one. Especially with regard to cold weather.
Let me jump to some comments, because we don't want to neglect our fans out there. And I think I'm caught up. But Jerry says, address this one. Truck campers are notorious for overloading a pickup. You would think so, but talk about truck campers and pickups.
Well, it's just a lot of times the challenge with truck campers or with trailers, we're going back to trailers or fifth wheels, travel trailers or fifth wheels, is a lot of people just they don't want to get a dually, right? And I understand that. I get it. But that's why we have dualies. You'd be able to carry more load in the back of that vehicle. And so when you try to use a single rear wheel truck and you put a truck camper, there's a lot of weight that's going on the back of that truck. And so we can overload that axle or overload the tires. So we just need to really be aware of how much weight can I put on that back axle of that vehicle and the whole vehicle. So again, an easy thing to do is to go take your pickup truck and take it to a CAT scale. They're all across the country. And you could put the front axle on the first platform and the rear axle on the back platform. And then you can look at the ratings of the axles and see how much room you actually have to be able to put on there. And then you can kind of see how much does that camper weigh. And then when I start loading it up, am I going to go over those ratings?
Well, it's interesting. See, we have a very astute audience, and they sure as hell know a lot more than John and I. But Steve Giano says he just saw a pickup on a commercial that supposedly can tow 38,000 pounds. And then just right after that, Walter said many of the newer dualies can tow 33,000 pounds in two-wheel drive, dual configurations, I think. Walter, you got to stop using these engineering terms. You're talking to a common man here. But address that issue about the
who owns a park model?
Huh?
Who
Right.
owns a
Yeah, but I don't have to worry about weight. I'm on concrete pads. I don't have to worry about that stuff. But talk about dualies and the importance of that. When does one get one? When do you truly need one?
Well, it's like that's what we were talking about before. Is that the primary tow rating is like I said earlier, the technology for engines and transmissions and differentials is getting higher and higher and higher, and those numbers are soaring. That number is, but the rear axle of that truck is not. And so we put a lot. We think that we can do it by one number, but in the fine print of the towing guides from the manufacturers, it says don't go over the GVWR and don't go over the rear axle weight rating. And that's what's happening. We might be able to move it down the road, but you're stopping distances and you're overloading the components on the rear axle and the frame. And so that's when we, especially with fifth wheels, when we put a lot of that pin weight's all going right on that rear axle, it doesn't take long before we get to a certain size fifth wheel where we need to have a dual rear wheel truck. So
when I do my seminars, and the question always comes up about towing, and because I make sure the audience knows I don't know what I'm talking about, but the question that people ask is, can
they find out about 3 minutes into your presentation?
Can this pickup truck tow this particular fifth wheel? That's the wrong question. The question is the stopping part of it. Yeah, on a flat ground. I mean, Toyota used to have that commercial where they towed the space shuttle down the street. So if you're on flat ground and you're not worried about going 60 miles an hour, you can probably tow anything you want. But it's that whole issue about stopping. So are you saying, though, that if somebody puts a commercial on TV that says this truck can tow 38,000 pounds, that once you get inside the book or the manual, it's going to tell you that it's not 38,000 pounds?
I can't speak to what the marketers do on their commercials, but there are vehicles that have a GCWR rating of that, and if the trailer is fit just like it was when it was tested, then it certainly could do it, because that means that that trailer had a certain amount of pin weight or tongue weight that was still acceptable to be under that rear axle and the GVWR of the trailer. So theoretically, it's possible. But what we see quite frequently is that, we load our RVs up and we have heavy pin weights. And so those pin weights are exceeding the ratings of the rear axle.
Okay, two things.
But you just have to know. You'd have to know what's going to, and different RVs can have different, different floor plans. If you have a rear bedroom, you're probably going to have a lighter pin weight. So you might be able to do something. So you might be able to use a single rear wheel truck instead of a dual rear wheel truck. Maybe. You just have to, you have to look at all of those numbers. And that's where this education comes in, understanding all of the numbers. Most of the towing guides all focus on what's called the GCWR, and that's the primary tow rating of the vehicle. But they also talk about, usually more in the fine print, the GVWR of the truck and the rear axle of the truck. And that's where it's sometimes easier for us to overload those with our RVs.
Mark Polk said that the rear axle is typically the weak link in the chain. Yep. Steve Giano, thank you for reminding us. We should do this more often. Steve says, can you please repeat who this gentleman is? Sorry, I came on late. We should do that more often, Steve. So thank you very much for that comment. We're talking tonight with Trey Selman from the RV Safety Education Foundation, and he is the new executive director for the last year, and that's RVSafety.com. And
so, Steve, just get here on time next week, or watch the replay in its entirety.
Right. Audrey's got a long one here. Audrey says, learn about the. Oh, okay. She's leading right into my next question. I was going to say we're getting down to 10 minutes here. I'll give Audrey the credit. Even though you were reading my mind, Audrey, she says, learn about the 2020 RV Safety Education Conference that will be held May 13th to 17th at the new RV Technical Institute in Elkhart, Indiana, the industry's premier consumer education conference. do you understand the importance? Oh, she's reading right from my. 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 I think she's reading right from my promo today. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the conference. You got them all excited. You've answered a lot of questions, and we got about 9 minutes. We try to kill it right at 8 because they're nice enough to give us an hour out of their life.
When is the conference? Who should attend, and what does it cost? And what will they learn?
This year, the conference is May 13th through the 17th. We have a few extra courses that go before that. We do some driver's training, behind the wheel driver's training that we do before and after, but that's an extra class. It's going to be in Elkhart, Indiana, as was mentioned. It's going to be at the RV Technical Institute, which is a new facility that's for RV technicians. But the conference is not for RV technicians. The conference is for consumers. It's for RV owners. And it's for people that want to be RVers or full-timers. We have a wide range of courses. We have over like 50 courses that we do over that 3 or 4 days. And so there's some advanced courses. There's some some beginner courses. We have a lot of those. But we focus on our primary courses are focusing on the systems of the RV to really understand those. So what's unique about it is that we have the relationship and working with the industry that the technicians come in or RV industry specialists come in. So the conference is usually held to about 100 people. So we like to keep it smaller so that the RV owners have, kind of one-on-one type time with these guys. And so they love teaching it because most of the time they're teaching other technicians, but then this is where they get to work with RV owners and they enjoy it greatly. So it's kind of a fun time for them.
Could you talk briefly about who some of the names of the instructors would be and see if we recognize any of the names?
Yeah, we have. We'll have some of the technician trainers from the RV Technical Institute. They'll be there teaching. We'll have Gary Bunzer, the RV doctor, will be there. He helps train some of the technicians as well. We have trainers from. I'm trying to pull up the names. My brain is getting tired now. But at the end of the day, from Moride. Moride will have their technicians there. One of their technicians, he comes and teaches some classes there. Dexter Axel comes and teaches classes there.
Is Chris Doherty coming this year?
I apologize, I didn't hear.
Is Chris Doherty coming this year?
Chris has come in the past. He's not going to be able to make it this year, just because of timing of things. So we love Chris. Chris is a great guy. But
So all you consumers out there, look on the screen, and Trey has given us a special code. You get a $25 discount if you use the NERVDA 20A code when you're registering. And registration is online at RVSafety.com. So you get a $25 discount, and I'll put that back into the comments later on because we get a lot of people who watch the show after the fact. They share it a lot, and throughout the week we get people come in. So we'll make sure to put that in the notes section also, but a $25 discount for the NERVDA people. Go ahead, Trey.
There's one more thing that's unique. I mean, that's the conference, and I'll be glad to answer any more questions about the specific of the conference, but also because it's at the RV Technical Institute, one of the things, what they do is they train technicians. They're also offering anybody that goes to our conference the week after the conference, so starting the 18th, that next, I'm not sure exactly, but it's the week after. It's like a 7-day course. They're level 1 training. They have a level 1 training scheduled to happen that week, and they're offering a 25% off discount for anybody that wants to get a level 1 technician certification training. So that's another option that they could do as well.
Hey,
if they wanted to do some, part-time work or just to help fix their RVs. There's a lot of good reasons why to do that, but that's an offer there, and you can see it on our website.
Right. For people that are going to attend this event, should they be bringing their own RV to work on, or are there other units there that they'll be working on, and they can bring theirs if they want, just to have a place to stay? For our event, you're not going to work on your RV. I mean, you're going to learn about it, but certainly you can bring your RV. Many people do. Yeah. Many people do. So, but we also have about 40% of the people historically don't have RVs yet.
So we have a large number of people that are just coming and staying in hotels. We'll have reduction in hotels as well.
Yeah.
Through the RV technical institute. So
if they get there early enough, they can do a couple of factory tours either before or after, because certainly they'll be in the RV capital of the world. So if they got a couple of manufacturers that might be on their short list, they can go visit the factory.
Yeah, we're even looking at trying to, we know of one where we're probably going to try to do a factory tour with some folks. So that's one of the things we're working on, but you can always go to any factory tour. Anybody can. So you're absolutely right. There's a Hall of Fame is there as well. We're not but a few miles away from the Hall of Fame. So there's a lot of unique things that can be looked at. So it is exciting. And like I said, 40% of the people don't even have an RV yet. The other ones are full timers. It's just a wide range. And it's a great conference. We love it.
And Doug Turner mentions also that Lippard's in that area. They got several buildings in the area. Lippard obviously being a very large, probably the largest component supplier of things that go into RVs. But there's a lot to do up there. There's a lot, and you're right, Doug. Doug says there's so many RV related things in northern Indiana. It's pretty amazing up there. It is best kept secret. Only the people that do RVs, know what's up there and how to work with it.
Plus, another thing that RVers like is good restaurants. And what was it, Blue Door, that buffet bar in Shipshewana?
In Shipshewana. Doug, what are we trying to think of? There's a big buffet. It's got the theater in Shipshewana. It's Blue something or other.
Blue Gate.
Okay.
Blue Gate. Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody did it. Was that your wife?
Huh?
Was that your wife, Trey? That your wife that got that inside?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, we heard her voice. But I'll tell you, there are exciting things to do out there, and looking at the Amish country, and the days are in May, so weather's not a factor for people coming from New England or anywhere in the country. From that fact, make a trip out of it.
Yep, really good. Trey, do you? I know you're a busy man, and we did have you a couple of years ago do some seminars at our Boston show. But do you get out to things like the Good Sam rallies, or what is your typical schedule like? It sounds like you're being torn in a lot of different directions. How do you figure out what day your week's going to look like?
It's right. This time of the year is show season. So early in the morning, about 5 o'clock, I'm getting on a plane to go to Richmond, Virginia. So I'll be at a show this weekend in Richmond, Virginia. Next week, the same thing again. I'll be in Idaho. Then I'm off a week because we're doing that science fair that we do here in Austin or Central Texas. Then I think I'm off to Colorado and somewhere else. I'm not remembering where that last one is. Overland Park, Kansas. So that's the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Great. One thing we would ask that you do, if you, maybe when you're on the airplane or something, if you have a chance to go back through all of the comments, this is going to be archived on our website. I'll send you the link that you can distribute to your friends, and so you'll be able to see all the comments. So we always go back in because inevitably we don't get to all the comments from our fans, and we feel bad about that. But we will go back in and do. I know Walter just added another 3 or 4 that we're just not going to be able to get to tonight. Doug Turner, RVers love free beer. Well, some of us love free Jack Daniels too, Doug, but that'll go for that. John and his water. All right, we are right at 8 o'clock. Trey, thank you very much for joining us. Any closing words for our fans?
No, thank you for the privilege of being able to talk to y'all. That's what we love to do. Like I said, we're an education organization, so we love doing our best to try to help people understand and enjoy their RVs. That's what we really want to see, is enjoyment of those RVs.
Yep. Any closing statement, John?
Just a special thank you to our viewers and our folks that share with others to allow us to spread the message to people all over the world. We want to thank you so much. Without you guys, we have no show. So thanks so much.
That's true. All right. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Thanks, Trey.
Bye-bye. Take care.